Penn State gets its 2027 quarterback. Will Wood commits to the Nittany Lions. He checks every single box, both on the field and, more importantly, off the field.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I know it might sound cliche, but Will Wood has the it factor and plenty of skills that you just can't teach. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host as always. Thank you so much for being here as we are talking Penn State football recruiting. The Nittany Lions land Will Wood. And this recruitment, I'm going to talk about the recruitment overall because it took an interesting turn. Peter Bourque was the priority, right? And then the debate at Peter Bourque versus Will Wood. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Did you want Will Wood or did you want Peter Bourque to commit to this class of 2027? Let's talk about the prospect himself, because I think I've seen the comparisons to Trace McSorley, and I think he's closer to Brock Purdy. Now, the it factor, the ability to win, the toughness, the leadership, those I think Brock Purdy has those traits, but that's where, if you want the overlap between Trace McSorley and Will Wood, that's the appropriate comparison. They share similar traits. But the difference, I think that, one, Trace McSorley was a lot more athletic. He was more of a capable dual threat, and Will Wood can run. He is mobile. I think he runs a 4.6. He does have that ability to be a true dual threat, but at the same time, he's looking to pass the football first. He is a passer first, not a runner. And I think at times, Trace McSorley was that true dual threat where he was looking to run the football and he was a little more predisposed to that. So he was better with his legs, but I would argue that Will Wood has the better arm talent. Brock Purdy is more of an appropriate comparison, in my opinion, because both QBs are athletic. They don't have that 5-star speed and acceleration and that breakaway ability, but it's what goes on between the ears. What's going on inside the helmet? Brock Purdy, the way that he processes the game is very similar, or Will Wood, the way that he processes the game is very similar to Brock Purdy, the decision making. And I don't have to guess on that. We know this. He has 42 touchdowns to 1 interception against the highest level of talent in Massachusetts. Now, Massachusetts isn't the greatest state when it comes to high school football. Don't get me wrong, but you still are playing good talent, guys that are going off to the Division I level, guys that are going into power conference football. And Will Wood does not turn the football over. He does not get flustered. He's very comfortable when he's under pressure, and some of his best plays are when he's under pressure. So that's the it factor on display, is the ability to make more, have the better plays when everything breaks down, when everything doesn't go according to plan. And it's to be some of the times when he's rolling out of the pocket and he throws the football downfield 50, 60 yards, what seems effortlessly. And Brock Purdy got the chance to look at the film, look at Will Wood's tape, and said, this guy's got top end footwork. He's got a nice release. And it is comparable to what Brock Purdy does well at the NFL level. So don't think of Wood as a running mobile quarterback. Think of him more compared to Brock Purdy, someone who can manage an offense. And I talk about the off the field traits. It's the leadership, it's the maturity, it's the no nonsense. Will Wood's a great guy to be around, and personality matters. The fit within the locker room matters, not just the scheme. And you don't have to question those things. You know this guy's going to lead by example. You know this guy's going to be buried in the film, studying the game as much as possible. Again, we had Al Pops, a national scout, talk about how Will Wood is a savant when it comes to the game of football. So those are the off-the-field traits that aren't going to show up in the recruiting rankings. He is underrated. ESPN has him as a 4-star, 24/7, and Rivals, they got to catch up. But when I compare the two, between Peter Bourque and Will Wood, okay, Peter Bourque is 6'4", 6'5". And how does the height ultimately change much? They weigh the same. So Peter Bourque, 6'4", 220. Will Wood, 6'2", 220. Just because one quarterback is slightly taller, but they make similar throws. I would say that maybe Peter Bourque has a little more zip on the football, but I'm not entirely sure what ultimately separates them at the end of the day. This recruitment was interesting because the priority was Peter Bourque for a while, but then everything shifted very fast. We're talking very fast because down the stretch, Penn State really wasn't recruiting Peter Bourque as much in the final month, I'd say. Everything turned and shifted towards Will Wood. Why would Penn State overly prioritize just your everyday average 3-star quarterback? No, that's not the case, because once they identified and it's the conversations that we don't get to hear, it's the meetings that we don't get to see, the workouts and the showcases, the private, right? The private showcases where Will Wood's going to throw for the coaches. They went and saw him throw, and then after that everything changed. They said, "Okay, you can sling the football, no problem." So he fits the scheme. He fits what Penn State and Matt Campbell want to do with this Penn State program from a personality standpoint. They sent the entire entourage. Remember, they sent 5 assistants to go visit the family. They didn't even do that for 5-star quarterback Will Menzel. You know what I mean? They didn't do that for Peter Bourque. They didn't do that for any other quarterback recruits. They went all in for Will Wood as a prospect, and it worked. They get this because I had heard that Boston College, his hometown school, was what he had pictured for himself, to work alongside Bill O'Brien. And that's another thing, that Will Wood is just such a mature, respectable guy. A lot of these predictions for Will Wood went in after he met with Boston College. And that's because he went to say, "Hey, I respect that you recruited me, but this is the direction that I'm going to go in." How many prospects are doing that these days? Kind of setting up a one-on-one meeting to, just go express appreciation to a coach that he's not going to commit to. So for Will Wood, it's more than just, "Hey, this guy has this athletic trait." It's some of the stuff that's just not going to show up in an industry ranking. We'll see Will Wood do some peer-to-peer recruiting, right? The players do just as much, if not more, recruiting than the coaches. And you got to be able to surround him with other playmakers in this class of 2027. But I like this move. I want to talk about the 2 quarterback situation, Peter Bourque versus Will Wood, a little more in the upcoming segment, and what Penn State needs to do next to really round out this class of 2027. That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened up your bank account and thought, "Where did all my money go?" you are not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and can help you cancel the ones that you don't need with just a few taps, and automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That is rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. And remember, you can get Locked On Nittany Lions ad-free by becoming a member of the Everydayer Club. Plus, you will get access to a members-only Discord server to talk all things Penn State sports. Visit LockedOnNittanyLions.supercast.com or check the link down in the show notes to learn more. Should Penn State have taken both? Did Penn State settle in this instance? Well, I'm here to tell you again that 2 quarterbacks is just not feasible in this day and age. It's just not. The way that you have to budget NIL money, and you got to take care of other position groups, and you want to build a strong supporting cast around Will Wood so that he's not just by himself. 2 quarterbacks. I mean, you're essentially burning NIL money at what cost at the end of the day, right? I don't think Penn State believes that it's settled. How they got to this conclusion really doesn't matter. If you got the quarterback prospect that you wanted, that you really like, then how does it matter that you ended up here? Will Wood and Peter Bourque do a lot of the same things very well. Bourque might have a little more zip on his passes. But when it comes to the accuracy, when it comes to the downfield arm strength, again, maybe I might argue that Will Wood has the stronger arm because of how far he can air out the football, especially when he's under pressure, especially when he's doing this off platform. Peter Bourque's in the top 10. I understand. And he's a good quarterback prospect at the end of the day. I don't think Penn State goes wrong one way or another. And that's the main takeaway, is that you found a capable quarterback prospect that is not miles and miles and miles behind your other QB targets that were in this conversation once upon a time. You get somebody that's going to be dedicated. You get somebody that I expect to stay at Penn State for the long haul. I don't have these initial concerns. Okay, is he going to jump into the transfer portal? Is he? And I don't know that I necessarily had that with Peter Bourque. I'm saying these concerns aren't there with Will Wood. The Virginia Tech's quarterback situation, that's completely different. How Georgia's managing things, completely different. But I would expect Will Wood to stay at Penn State for his entirety of his career. Things change. The transfer portal is always there. NIL is always a factor, but I just don't, the conversations that I've had, the people I've talked to, I don't get the impression that this is financially driven, that he believes this is a place that he can develop and that he wants to be here. Again, he's telling the hometown school no. He is within 15 miles of Boston College and is deciding to go to Penn State. Peter Bourque's a really good QB. So is Will Wood. And Penn State got the quarterback that it ultimately preferred. I think Wood just checks more of the boxes that Penn State is looking for versus what Peter Bourque was offering. And that's okay. They just have different, Virginia Tech, Penn State, they just have different priorities when it comes to quarterback archetype. That's fine. Because Virginia Tech believes that they got their top target. All right, so everybody wins at the end of the day. But 2 quarterbacks, just not feasible anymore. In theory, it sounds cool. It sounds great, but you're paying NIL money. You know that you're paying NIL money to a backup because it's different. You can play multiple running backs. You can play multiple wide receivers. You can play multiple linebackers and defensive backs. If you have multiple QBs, you have no QB, as the saying goes. So you would be burning hundreds of thousands of dollars in this day and age when you need to be smart. You need to be strategic. This follows the NFL model where you have to be efficient with your salary cap, even though there is no salary cap, but you have to be efficient with how you spend your money. And 2 quarterbacks is just not in the cards for anybody unless you are really taking a chance on somebody that's taken a major pay cut. You have the additional NIL, and that's kind of a luxury at that point in time. So I know this accelerated rather quickly, but it's not about how you get to the end result. It's the fact that you got the end result. And I think Penn State is going to be very content with this. And you got your running backs. Running back is taken care of. You're looking for 1, maybe 2 more tight end prospects. Khalil Taylor is going to be at the top of your wide receiver board, but we already see Jameer Dean, wide receiver out of Tennessee, get a ratings boost from 24/7. He is now officially a 4-star. I still think he's underrated. Trust me, if you haven't seen, I will tell you first and foremost, but If you got some free time, you will be impressed by the Jameer Dean tape. Go turn that on and tell me that guy doesn't have 5-star traits. He might be a high-end 4-star at the end of the day, but he has 5-star athleticism. Go check that out. You'll be like, oh yes, Zach knows what he's talking about there. Offensive line in a good spot. You could add a couple more. Penn State's waiting on answers from Carter Jones, 4-star. Leighton Von Brandt, solid high-end 4-star, top 100 player, even though he leans Notre Dame. And then defensively, hey, you're set at defensive back for the most part. Linebacker, you want a couple more prospects, but that board's not as lengthy as some of the other position groups. You need defensive linemen. Penn State's looking for more defensive tackles, more pass rushers. I think you need pass rushers. Got to find a way. Find a way. See if you can get Abraham Cisse. Circle the wagons there, but I think that is a premier player in state that's gonna hurt if you end up missing on him. I'll be honest about that. So that's what the Nittany Lions have in the class of 2027. Remember, Matt Campbell's only been on the recruiting trail for a few months, and this is a top 10 class according to 24/7, top 15 according to Rivals. That's a good start. Good start for the Nittany Lions. So can they build this class out further and really solidify it? And it's wins like that for Carter Jones or potentially an Abraham Cisse kind of circling around and pulling off what would be an upset victory. And then adding to those position groups that I mentioned. That's how you can really solidify this class. But Penn State got its quarterback. They're approaching 20 commitments as we speak. And more will be on the way sooner rather than later. And for all the latest updates around Penn State football recruiting, it'll be here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section about Will Wood and this recruitment. Maybe you preferred Peter Bourque. Let me know. I want to hear from all of you. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around all of your favorite Penn State sports teams.